The Honourable Leader of the National Party.
Speaker, my question without notice is to the Prime Minister. Is the Prime Minister aware that exactly 1 year ago today he said, and I quote, "We're engineering a recovery from 13 months out." 13 months ago when we reduced interest rates. But we don't want it to come through too quickly. Given the economic agony since that statement, I ask, is this what he means by a kickstart? And actually, how much longer will the 19,000 unemployed in the Wills area have to wait to feel the recovery coming on?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
It's very curious that the Leader of the National Party should ask me about a recovery when the Shadow Treasurer said that the reduction in interest rates in January 1990 was a political decision taken by the government. It was a political decision that politicised the Reserve Bank. In other words, that interest rates shouldn't have been lowered in January 1990, and how dare the government lower it, because to have done so was a political action. Now, the fact is, Mr Speaker, the government did it because it believed it was the right thing to do at the time, as the central bank did. And there's no point you asking questions about recession recovery when you have opposed every interest rate reduction that the government introduced, and not only that, blackguarded the Reserve Bank for joining with the government in making those reductions possible. In fact, Mr Speaker, at the Asia Pacific Bankers Club last weekend, the Shadow Treasurer accused the bank of being politicised, and the Governor, this is a report in the Australian, the Governor responded tersely to the accusation, saying he would, quote, "normally not worry about such nonsense, and Mr Reith's representations come into this category." Now, Mr Speaker, it's a pretty novel twist of events that in front of the Governor of the Bank of Japan and the Chairman of the Bank of Tokyo and the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank and the rest of the banking fraternity of Southeast Asia, we find the Shadow Treasurer of Australia blackguarding the central bank of this country, alleging of it that it's politicised, that is, having no respect for Australia at all, no sense of nation, no sense of camaraderie with the place, but simply trying to say to a most influential audience that the central bank was basically politically corrupt, that it responded to political manipulation, and the examples he used was the January 1990 reduction in interest rates, the same reductions which, in fact, the Leader of the National Party now refers to. Now, Mr Speaker, it might be worth remembering that this attack upon the central bank has gone back a long way. And the Leader of the Opposition then, as the Shadow Minister for Finance, said on the 30th of March 1989, against this background, the Treasurer, that was me, reported inclination to appoint one of his political mates as Bob Johnson's replacement should be a matter of considerable concern. Now, Mr Speaker, the former Governor was appointed by the member for Bennelong, and he was not the obvious choice at the time, and he was an express choice of the government of the day. I worked with Bob Johnson happily, effectively. I never attacked him in opposition, and I worked fruitfully with him. And he had this to say. Order. And I appointed Mr Speaker, and I appointed Bernie Fraser as Secretary of the Treasury upon, amongst others, the recommendation of the member for Bennelong. Now, Mr Speaker, the former retiring governor.
I take the point of order that the recommendation to which he's referring to is absolutely incorrect.
Order. The member for Bennelong has no point of order. The member for Bennelong. Order. The member for Bennelong will resume his seat. If the member for Bennelong doesn't resume his seat, I'll name him. The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, the member for Bennelong is saying that he recommended that I appoint Mr Fraser as Secretary of the Treasury. That's what I said. You said you should appoint Bernie Fraser. You told me in the corridor you should appoint Bernie Fraser.
The member for Bennelong will resume his seat.
I take a point of order.
Do it later, John. You do it every other day.
After I resume my seat.
Well, you do it every other day, John, after question time. Have another go today.
The member for Bennelong has a point of order.
Mr Speaker,
he can take the point of order, but not
I take the point of order. I mean, Mr Speaker, I take the point of order that the Prime Minister having deliberately misrepresented my position.
Order.
He then in response... Well, are you going to hear me out or are you going to sit me down?
I'm going to sit you down.
So you're not going to hear me out?
I'm going to ask the member for Bennelong to resume his seat.
Well, you're going to hear me...
I'm going to ask the member for Bennelong
well,
can
I then take a point of order?
The member for Bennelong will resume his seat. The point that the member for Bennelong is making is a point of personal explanation. He can do that at some later stage in the proceedings when that is appropriate. The Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I think the member for Bennelong didn't hear me correctly because I didn't misrepresent him at all. Now, Mr Speaker, can I say this? No, I didn't. You recommended I appoint Bernie Fraser the secretaryship of the Treasury. You told me in a corridor. You said he's who you should appoint. I did. Wrong. There, you're caught out. Caught out. Caught out. Caught out.
Now, if the member for Bennelong behaves in this fashion again, I will name him. I will name the member for Bennelong if he behaves like that again. The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, now I refer now to Bob Johnson, who was appointed by the member for Bennelong and for whom I worked with fruitfully for 7 years.
Order.
He said this in his retiring speech called "Doing It My Way," which was published on the 14th of July 1989. Throughout more than 6 years in office, this government has been very correct in its dealings with the bank. Relations personally have been harmonious and very fruitful. There has been no interference in matters that are the responsibility of the bank. Only an insider can know that has not always been so. Only an insider can know that. In other words, here you are talking about blackguarding the governor in the most public way in a cowardly and un-Australian way before an East Asian bankers organisation. Because you'll stoop to any depth to make a lousy political point, even at the expense of your own country and its standing,
Order.
Where, in fact, as usual, the only respecters of institutions in this country are the Labor Party.
Order. The Right Honourable Member for New England on a point of order.
Mr Speaker, the Honourable, you would be aware that
Order.
under our standing
The member
orders,
for Banks will cease interjecting.
Standing Order 76, as you would know, Mr Speaker, says that all imputations of improper motives and all personal reflections on members shall be considered highly disorderly. I put to you that any suggestion that any action by, in this instance, a former Treasurer, with respect to the appointment of somebody to the Reserve Bank or their involvement with them, is a matter that can only be canvassed under a substantive motion before this House. Now, there have been a series of personal attacks by the Prime Minister in the course of this question time, and I put to you, Mr Speaker, that your impartiality and the manner in which you conduct this House is more and more under scrutiny in the light of the extent to which you are prepared to interpret these standing orders.
Order. The House will come to order.
Mr Speaker, this is a serious matter pertaining to the conduct of the affairs of the House and the interpretation of the standing orders. And the standing orders distinctly are there to ensure that there should be no reflection on members. And I put to you that the nature and conduct of the Prime Minister is
for New England has made his point,
and it's your responsibility to do something about it.
The member for New England has raised a point of order about reflections and members not reflecting upon each other. I think the honourable member might also be willing to have a look at Standing Order 55 that talks about lack of noise in the chamber. And indeed, the proceedings of the House would work a whole lot better if people on both sides respected the standing orders. If the Prime Minister is making an imputation against a member, then he should not, and he should withdraw. If he is not, he should proceed. The Honourable Prime Minister.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
We have a further point of order from the member for Cowper.
Mr Speaker, following the point of order raised by the Right Honourable Member for New England, I draw your attention to Standing Order 77. When any offensive or disorderly words are used, whether by a member who is addressing the chair or by a member who is present, the Speaker shall intervene.
Order.
Mr Speaker, it's your job to intervene when there's disorder. Why don't you do it?
The Honourable Member for Cowper resume his seat. There is no point of order. The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker.
The member for Mayo is inviting my attention, is he?
Mr. Speaker,
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to Australian institutions, the Liberal Party distinguish themselves by their roguish behaviour towards them. Whether it is manipulating and abusing the power of the Senate, whether it is dealing with Governors General about the election, about the House of Representatives and its future, whether it is about attacking the probity of the Governor of the Central Bank, whether it's about kneecapping the public service, as the Shadow Treasurer put it last week, whether it is about with the Australian Tax Commissioner, Mr. Speaker.
The Prime Minister might resume his seat.
Mr. Speaker, there's another standing order that no reference can be made to the Queen or her representative, and the implication about members' involvement and the way in which they've abused this place is totally contrary.
Order. The Prime Minister
to the procedure
referred to a
standing
previous
orders.
Governor General, not the current incumbent. The Honourable Prime Minister.
Or seeking to compromise the Australian Tax Commissioner by appointing a board, a governing board drawn from the accountancy professions, the same ones, I presume, who are funding the GST research unit. The litany, the line goes on, and even Australian business, who are now supposedly bludgers for asking the government for support and government assistance. Every institution's under assault. The Central Bank, the Senate when it suits them, the tax office, the Treasury, the bureaucracy. It doesn't matter. You're into them, and yet he thinks he's got the leader of the National Party the right to get up and ask a question about monetary policy in January 1990, suggesting it should have been lower earlier, when last week your Shadow Treasurer said it was politically manipulated down. I mean, you're an absolute disgrace. You've got no regard for the country and no consistency in what either one of you say one day to the next.
The Honourable Member for Richmond. The Honourable Member for Bennelong. On a personal explanation.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to make a personal explanation.
Does the honourable member claim to have been misrepresented?
Yes, I do. During question
the honourable
time
member may proceed.
Today, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister made two references to alleged recommendations of mine to him as Treasurer concerning the appointment of Mr. Bernie Fraser to various positions. He firstly incorrectly claimed that I had recommended to him when he was Treasurer that he appoint Mr. Fraser as Secretary of the Treasury. The sequence of events was that Mr. Stone resigned as Secretary of the Treasury in or about September of 1984. The then Treasurer appointed Mr. Fraser. In a subsequent conversation with the Treasurer, I indicated to him that I agreed with that appointment, which I did, and I made it publicly clear later on that I did agree with it. So to suggest, therefore, that it is on my recommendation, I mean, you're not going to tell me the Treasurer rang me and asked me who I would recommend. He was charitable then, but not that charitable. The second observation that I would make is that any suggestion of his, which I took him to make during the course of question time, that I had recommended, which I had recommended the appointment of Mr. Fraser as Governor of the Reserve Bank. He did say that.
Order.
He changed his story later on.
Order.
He changed it. The fact is that I
member for Bennelong.
That I made it. Point
of order. Leader of the House.
Sit down. I am not going to. What is the point of
the member for Bennelong will resume your seat.
Right.
No, point of order from the Leader of the House.
Take a point of order. This is a point of personal misrepresentation. He has not, the member for Bennelong, indicated where he has been misrepresented in this matter. There was no statement made by the Prime Minister at any point of time, and there's witnesses right through the House to point to that. The suggestion was made that the former leader of the opposition recommended to the Prime Minister that he appoint Mr. Fraser to the governorship of the Reserve Bank. Therefore, he is erecting a straw man, not putting a point of personal representation.
On the first point of order, the member for Bennelong is in order. He has corrected the record. I'm listening carefully to his second point.
I heard the Prime Minister say
the member for Bennelong to ensure he does not introduce new material into the personal
I'm not seeking to introduce. I heard the Prime Minister to say, and I will be interested to hear the tape of the proceedings. And if my hearing was defective, then I don't have a point of personal explanation, and I'm quite free to acknowledge that. I'm perfectly free to acknowledge that, but I checked my understanding of what had been said with a number of my colleagues, and what I rose to was a belief on my part that the Prime Minister had claimed that I had recommended the appointment of Mr Fraser as Governor of the Reserve Bank. It was a matter of public record at the time that I opposed the appointment of Mr
all right,
Fraser
you finished your personal explanation.
and it's on that point.
Order. You finished your personal explanation.
Oh,
No.
I haven't. No, don't get the bad habits of your boss on this. You're a very well-respected man on this side of the House, and I'm not going to be browbeaten by you or any other representative of the New South Wales right.
You've finished your personal explanation. The Leader of the House.
Standing orders are quite clear-cut. The job of members of the House of Representatives is to help the chair, not hector it. I take a point of order. I regard the last set of remarks of the opposition spokesman on industrial relations as offensive to the chair, and I ask that you seek them to be withdrawn.
With respect to the reference to the Speaker, the member for Bennelong is out of order and should withdraw reflections upon the Speaker. Yes,
Mr. Speaker,
does the Prime Minister does the Prime Minister claim to have been misrepresented
by the member for Bennelong?
The honourable member may proceed.
Who claimed that I said that he recommended to me that Mr Fraser be appointed Governor of the Reserve Bank. I never said that, and he never recommended it. But he did say to me that he would have appointed Mr Fraser as Secretary of the Treasury. I subsequently appointed him, and he congratulated me on the appointment. He was professionally chosen from the public service, so how dare you attack him as Governor? He was professionally chosen from the public service, so how dare you attack him as Governor?
The Prime Minister is now. The Prime Minister. The point of order I take, Mr Deputy Speaker, is that the Prime Minister is now doing the very thing that the Leader of the House enjoins you to prevent us from doing, and he just is debating the issue and scoring a political point, and it ought not to be allowed in personal explanations.
I believe the Prime Minister has concluded his personal explanation. There's no further point of order. The Mr Speaker has received a letter from the honourable member for Bendigo proposing that a definite matter of public importance be submitted to the House for discussion, namely the total failure of the government to recognise the importance of small business in the Australian economy by the creation of jobs. I call upon those members who approve of the proposed discussion to rise in their places. The honourable member for Bendigo.
Thank you.